How you going, guys? And this video will be based on another subscriber's comment about near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, all that kind of metaphysical stuff. I'll give my opinion on it, things I've experienced, and also some very grounding practical advice. I always like to end on grounding practical advice, because when we get caught up in these metaphysical concepts too much, it can lead to thinking, overthinking, anxiety, fear, suffering, all that kind of stuff that I don't want you guys to fall into. Spirituality is, at its root, foundation, is meant to be about inner peace and happiness, here and now, while we can explore all these other metaphysical ideas. So that's what the video is going to be about, and you'll see the comment here. Hello, sir. Do you ever listen to near-death experiences, and would you ever be willing to make a video on them? I listened to them and they brought me a lot of peace surrounding death and the death of others, but I mostly listen to your channel because while I'm still in a human form and will be for quite some time as a 24-year-old, I still have anxieties to work on while on earth. Much love. I replied, I never had one of those near-death experiences, but I used to do lucid dreaming and out-of-body type practices. That's great to hear that you are working on your fears and anxieties. That's why we are here ultimately, and to unite with God while still living. Practices of devotion, surrender, and meditation will get you there in a healthy way. Spoiler alert on the tips later on. And then they replied, thank you for replying. I had a mushroom trip last year where I was downloaded with the sense of the universe is perfect. Life is so silly. I am God. And I put myself here and to drop all my ridiculous anxieties and just live in the now. But then my ego crept back in months later, probably from looking at the news too much, and is now on overdrive. Being like, no, life is serious, this is no game. And with spirituality, my ego now has a cosmic level of fear of every action I do now is going to affect me in the next lifetime and so on. And fear when near-death experiences talk about becoming the light. When my ego hears becoming the light, I think of those white-walled rooms for torture. I feel like I can't be free and joyful anymore because I need to be super strict and disciplined like a monk. Also, if you did achieve an out-of-body experience, it would be cool to hear about it if you are open to sharing. Your channel is amazing. So, a fair bit to cover there. And one thing I'll say, notice all these concepts that your mind is generating and fear of the white light at death and all that. That's what I'm trying to tone down for your own benefit. The thing is, once you achieve a state of inner peace and happiness, you're not in fear anymore. You're right, your ego is coming up with all these fearful stories. I'll be in a room of white light. It's going to be torture. Stories, concepts. Where are all these stories in a state of deep sleep? Where were all these stories when you were a newborn baby? All I'm saying is, all these concepts were taught to you, taught to me, taught to all of us. And the way out of these concepts, I'll share a bit later. But the first thing I'll say, let's talk about the three bodies in Hinduism, because then it will lead into out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, all that kind of stuff. In Hinduism, they talk about the three bodies. The physical body, which is public to all, the subtle body, which inhabits the physical body, and the causal body, the cause of the subtle and physical body. Do you ever wonder why you do the same thing every day? Why you speak the same, walk the same, drawn to the same types of activities? Causal body. You can think of it like the subconscious. The causal body sprouts the subtle body, and the subtle body directs the physical body. I won't get into fine detail, but just accept that Hinduism says there's a causal body, subtle body, and physical body. And here's the difference between a materialist and someone that is open to the idea of a soul, a spirit. Here's what the whole foundation of materialism rests on. That consciousness is a product of the body. Because the materialist thinks, before my birth of this physical body, there was a blank. While I'm living, there's some experiences. After death, there's a blank. But this whole belief rests on that consciousness is a property of the body. And just so you know, if you haven't looked into science as of late, this is an old belief system, materialism. Because here's what it's saying, by the way. If you've just taken on the beliefs of materialism without investigating it, the whole belief rests on this fact, that unconscious objective matter was there in the beginning. In the beginning of the universe, there was unconscious objective matter that somehow, clumped together in some formation, gave rise to non-objective consciousness. If you know how this happens, quickly submit your theory to the scientific community. They'll do a peer-reviewed study on your findings, and who knows, you'll be famous, because they have not come up with this theory yet, how this happens. Non-objective consciousness coming from objective unconscious matter. Picture it like marbles. Imagine getting a bunch of marbles, which no one thinks marbles are conscious, clumping them together, and it somehow gives rise to consciousness. How? Again, if you know, tell the scientific community. So what I'm saying with this is, if you think there was nothing before your birth, there'll be nothing after death, that's a belief, I'm sorry. And it all rests on this foundation of consciousness being generated by the unconscious objective body. How? Who knows? That's just a belief. That's what I'm saying. If you're a materialist saying all these religious and spiritual people are talking nonsense, it's all fantasy, I'm sorry, but you've subscribed to a fantasy until proven otherwise. That's why the study of consciousness is critical to understanding spirituality and religion. Also, what I'll say is, when you speak to a loved one, do you feel like you're speaking to a hunk of flesh? Or do you feel like there's someone in the body animating it? What's the difference between a body that's sleeping and a dead body? I've seen many people sleeping and I've seen a few dead bodies. And the people I've seen in the coffin, it doesn't look like them anymore. There's something gone. I've also had the unfortunate experience of needing to put down both of our dogs. And I was there the moment they were alive and the moment they die. Very traumatizing, especially when it's your loved pet. But there's just this shift. You just see it. You're like, there was something there, it's gone. And again, to say consciousness is a product of the body, pretty bold claim. What they say in Hinduism is the soul inhabits the body. And when the body can no longer function, the soul departs. Picture it like this, a modern example. If you're on a FaceTime call with someone, you see the person. You're on the phone, they're on the phone. Just say they drop the phone and you lose connection with them. Do you think the person you're talking to is gone? They're not gone. All that's happened is they've lost the means of communication. They're still there, they've just broken their phone. We can't communicate now. In a similar way, when the physical body can no longer function, the soul cannot communicate anymore. That's what they're saying. The soul is metaphysical. It's not physical, but it inhabits a physical body. And when the body breaks, like when you break the phone, the soul is still there. They just can't communicate through the body. And this leads into teachings of reincarnation, which I won't get into. But the only reason I'm stressing this point is they say the physical body is born of this earth and goes back to the earth. The subtle body, the soul, is born of subtle elements, metaphysical. It's in the realm of consciousness. Where is consciousness? That's why science can't find consciousness. Science is the study of the objective reality. Consciousness, even thoughts. You're experiencing thoughts, but where are they? Can you put a thought on the table? Can you put a feeling on the table? Science can test the brain and how it correlates to what we think and feel. When you think this, something lights up in the brain. When you feel this, something lights up in the brain. But they cannot explain or experience what your inner experience is. That is the whole mystery of consciousness and first-person experience. Very fascinating stuff when you study it. So I just had this big build up and lead up just to show you, if you're going to say, look, consciousness is a property of the body, nothing happens after death. Sorry, that's a belief. Because you can't prove that. Just as you're saying spiritual people can't prove that. Now, this leads me into my lucid dreaming and out-of-body experience practices. I got into spirituality because I felt there was something missing. There was a void. I grew up a Christian. Didn't resonate with me. Went into atheism. Didn't resonate with me. With me. Any atheist watching this, remember, if atheism is making you happy, I'm all for it. How do I view this reality? All I view it as is, how can I feel as much peace and happiness and spread that peace and happiness to others? That's all I care about. Whatever the scientific methods and studies of the time doesn't concern me. I'm all for it. Well done. But this is all about an internal shift. You can't study your feelings on a table. You can't study your thoughts. There's the scientific world and the internal world. I'm interested in about inner peace and happiness. So atheism didn't do it for me. No belief in a higher power, that we're born, living, gonna die. Consciousness was a product of the body. All this didn't help for me personally. Slowly went into Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, where they talk about dream yoga and lucid dreaming. So I was getting into lucid dreaming practices. There's techniques to do that. Where in the dream, you realize you're dreaming, then you can alter the dream. Fly in the dream, try to walk through walls, try. Why do I say try? Because even when you know it's a dream, it's still very hard to walk through solid objects. You know it's a dream, but you have to keep doing a reality check. My reality check, check my hands. Whenever my fingers were bent or looked out of shape, I knew I was dreaming. And many times before I would take a big run up and jump off a cliff and start flying, I would do triple check. I'm like, let me double check that this is a dream before I start doing something crazy. Because our mind is so attached to concepts and thinking reality is real. Even when we're dreaming, we have to double check. Well, I did anyway. This also led me into out-of-body experiences. And he's probably still on YouTube. There was a guy called Michael Raduga who came up with this book, The Phase, about out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, all that kind of stuff. And there's one technique I took from his book. A lot of his book I didn't find much interest in. But the techniques for getting out of body, I really found useful. And in that book, he's saying the best way to achieve an out-of-body experience is go to bed, fall asleep, and take advantage of those micro awakenings as you wake up. Because if you study the sleep cycle, when we first fall asleep, we drop into deep sleep, then we come up into a dreaming state, then have a micro awakening. This might be just to roll over in bed, scratch your face, whatever. You're awake, even if you're not fully conscious of it. But if you study the sleep cycle, it's deep sleep, dream, waking. Deep sleep, dream, waking. The deep sleep phases get shorter and shorter, and the dream phases get longer and longer. But here's basically what you're meant to do. Whenever you felt yourself waking up, you're meant to keep your eyes closed, remain still, which is very hard because usually when we feel like we're awake, we get up, open our eyes, move around. But the whole point of this exercise was train yourself to wake up and not move. Keep very still. Then practice certain separation techniques. Here was my favorite one. I'm lying down asleep, I feel myself waking up, then I'd remain very still. Then I'd picture myself rotating horizontally. You know, like those pigs on a spit where they rotate? I would be in bed, laying very still, visualize myself rotating, spinning, spinning, spinning. Before you know it, you feel like you've spun out of your body and you see your body laying on the bed. I know this sounds weird to anyone that hasn't experienced it. There are other techniques too, like swimming or moving an arm. Like there's all these techniques. The Phase by Michael Raduga. Look that up. He's still on YouTube, by the way. But in any case, I was doing this, rolling out of the body, looking at my body on the bed, walking outside, doing all this kind of stuff. And here's the thing. This clearly showed you that your subtle body and physical body are separate things. See, that's another thing in Hinduism, Advaita Vedanta. The three bodies. In the waking state, they say your three bodies are active. Causal body, subtle body, physical body. When you fall asleep, you lose awareness of the physical body. Now, what is creating the dream? The subtle body. The subtle body, when the physical body is awake, takes in the information through the senses, pulls on past memory, past experiences, and that's how we interact with the world. When the physical body shuts down with the senses, all we're left with are the memories and thoughts of the past, and that generates our world. When the subtle body shuts down, when the mind shuts down, all we're left with is the experience of a blank. That's the causal body. The causal body is like the seed state. If you were to take a seed from an apple tree, Cut the seed open and open it up. You're not going to find a tree in there. Open up the apple seed. There's no tree in the seed, is there? But that seed, under the right conditions, sprouts into an apple tree. That's what the causal body is. When we experience deep sleep, the physical and subtle body have shut down. Now we're just experiencing the causal state. That's why it's peaceful. It's a peaceful blank. But that peaceful blank is full of suffering. It's got the seeds of our suffering. Because what sprouts out of deep sleep? The dream state. All our memories, experiences, tendencies, and then the subtle body sprouts the waking state. I won't make this a detailed description of all this, but it just goes to show you, once you study Hinduism or Advaita Vedanta, how they talk about the three bodies, and once you have all these lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, you can clearly see the physical and subtle body are separate. And again, what dies at death? Even the doctors will tell you this. What do they class as death? Death of the brain. When the brain is no longer active, they class you as dead. But how do they know you're dead? How do they even know when you're conscious? There's been many instances where a coma patient, everyone thinks they're unconscious, but when they wake up, they said, I heard everything you said. Or there's people that go under anesthetic and wake up during anesthetic, where the doctor thinks they're unconscious. So this is why consciousness is the key. What determines consciousness and unconsciousness? How do you know someone that appears to be conscious is having an eternal experience? That's the whole thing about solipsism, which leads to paranoia, by the way. But that's the thing. The mystery of consciousness will not be solved by science, because science is studying the objective reality. So again, your loved ones or yourself, when the body drops away, I'll take it back to that phone example with FaceTime. Just because the phone's broken, the means of communication is broken, how do you know they're dead? When you're speaking to a loved one on a FaceTime call again, the breaking of the phone, losing contact, you don't think that they're dead. You just think, oh crap, they've dropped their phone. I'll see them again later. In a similar way, how do we know? This can go either way, can't it? Materialists could be right, spiritual people could be right, but again, the materialist has to prove how consciousness comes from the body. It's a total mystery. Study science, study the nature of consciousness, you'll find that they're running out of answers. They're slowly coming to the realization, perhaps consciousness is fundamental. Panpsychism. But even panpsychism acknowledges there's material reality with bits of consciousness in it. Advaita Vedanta will say, you're getting close, but no. There is no things. There is no material reality. There's just consciousness appearing as a material world. Again, like in your dreams. Your dreams are just made of pure mind, but there appears to be people, trees, cars, rocks. It's all mind. Advaita Vedanta is saying that's what's happening on this bigger scale. So no, Advaita Vedanta will boldly claim the moment of death, your subtle body is not dying. The physical body drops away, and depending on what you believe in, you're going to go to heaven, hell, or be reborn. So hopefully that's a comforting fact for everyone. Comforting in the sense of, for the people that fear death, like I'm going to be non-existent, spirituality and religion say, don't worry, you're going to exist after death. Also for the people that go, yeah, but I don't want to exist forever. You know why you don't want to exist forever? Because you're thinking about this current life, this misery and suffering you're experiencing. Don't worry, this isn't going to last forever. Your true self is infinite and eternal. This egoic self, this material self, it's gone. That could be good or bad news. You might have a great life, sorry, temporary. You might have a miserable, suffering life, sorry, temporary. But the true self lives on. And here's where I want to be very gentle and careful with what I say next, and also leading into spiritual practice. Here's what they say under the teachings of reincarnation. This is their teachings. However you end this life, that's what you're going to pick up next life. So if you end this life with misery, suffering, hating the life, guess what's going to trigger next life? The same thoughts and feelings of hating life. So what they're saying is death isn't an escape route. If you choose to check out early because of all the misery and suffering you're experiencing, I totally understand. Seriously, I'm not denying all your misery and suffering, but all I'm saying from these teachings, and you don't have to believe them, of course, your habits and tendencies carry on. If you have the habits and tendencies of thinking, this life is miserable, I hate life, I hate people, they're the habits and tendencies that are going to pick up next life. In other words, God doesn't let you out of this. God needs you to work through all this. And there is one way to do this. Love, acceptance, patience. That's the key spiritual practice. There are many people that objectively have a great life, but internally they're miserable. There's many people that have, on appearance, a very troubled life, a lot of problems and trauma, but they're happy. What's the difference? Mindset. When the mind is always thinking about me, my life, my problems, you suffer. When the mind is turned outwardly in the mindset of service, devotion, surrender, humility, you're happy. You can be rich with a positive mindset, poor with a positive mindset, rich with a negative mindset, poor with a negative mindset. Of course, having a comfortable life makes it so much easier. But many people with a comfortable life take it for granted. So here's what it comes down to. Your mind's either focused on the world or focused internally. They're the only options. And practices like karma yoga, devotion, surrender, slowly, in your own time, tilt the mind slowly back and back and back so you're anchored in the true source of happiness, God, or your true self. And that's what I'll say to this commenter and anyone watching who is open to what I'm saying. Do all your practices, do all your out-of-body experiences, come up with all your theories on reality, but I'm just encouraging you to do one thing as you're exploring all this. Keep the mindset of love. Love conquers all. See, that's the thing with spirituality. Some people love intellectualizing. I really love intellectualizing spirituality, picking apart philosophy, understanding how it's the one appearing separate. Why should I do karma yoga? Why should I do meditation? I love it. And many people don't. They're just like, all this talking is boring. I just have a lot of love in my heart for God. I don't want to hear all this. I just want to sing to God, pray to God. Perfect. Some people are very emotional, some are intellectual. But the one key thing I've found, seriously, love is the answer to everything. Operating from the root of love solves all problems. When you're talking to an atheist and you're very calm, non-reactive, listening to what they're saying, very patient, they appreciate that. When you do that to a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu, a Christian, when you're very patient, loving, non-reactive, understanding, they love it. See, love is the language of all. Whether you physically say it or you're just giving off the vibe of love, love is the answer. You know that old cliche, love conquers all? It's so true. So whatever belief system you take on, just do it with the mindset of love. And why is the God teaching so important? Because it humbles the ego. The ego is against love. The ego is all about separation, control, fear, anxiety. Devoting to a higher principle, whether you call that God or the universe, humbles the ego. If this is your true self and this is your ego, the ego blocks the true self. When the ego is humbled, surrendered, the true self can shine. And all these thoughts of what happens at death, am I going to be in a room with white light, that's torture? Where are all these concepts coming from? Did you know those concepts when you were a baby? Nope. Do you know those concepts in deep sleep? No. This is all thinking. This is all messing up your mind. You are the witness of all these negative thoughts. And the way out of this, why you feel like you're a person living a life doing spiritual practice, again, I'm going to repeat, all you need to do, see others as yourself and love them. See others as yourself and serve them. Or see others as God or God's children. Love, service, devotion, surrender. Watch what happens to the ego. It slowly dissolves. Your ego goes on life support. And what effect does that have on you? You're going to feel like a person living a life like you always did. But deep down, you'll clearly see, I'm not owning or controlling anything. And you're just going to be left with this overwhelming sense of peace, love, happiness, and gratitude. No matter what's happening. Through good fortune and bad fortune. You're going to see all of it as a blessing. So that's my closing advice. Do all your spirituality, mystical, mushroom trips, ayahuasca, LSD, do all of that. Experience everything you want, but keep God on the mind. Love. Love conquers all. I'll end with that. Thank Thanks for the question. Take care.